this is a thing now. The Powerpuff Girls reboot has been getting less than satisfactory reviews from onlookers, and part of me sees why. However, I plan on demonstrating that it isn't the absolute worst thing in existence. So today, I'm going to look at easily the most controversial of episodes, Horn Sweet Horn. This will be a quickie. Let's dive in. So we start at a zoo, and out of the bush, Bubbles wants to see a unicorn. Everyone laughs it off, and she walks away sad, wanting to see a unicorn. Then out comes a horse named Donnie, who believes he's at heart a unicorn. I don't have to mention what this is a wonderful metaphor for, because if it isn't obvious enough for you, you probably won't get it if I explain it. Bubbles then gets the idea to bring Donnie to the professor to get him to change Donnie into a unicorn, but instead it turns him into a monster. After being torn up that he's not a unicorn, he goes on a rampage, tearing through the Pickle Museum. Bubbles confronts him, and he swats her away, quickly regretting it. Some unicorns arrive and save the day, telling Donnie that he was literally a unicorn the whole time. The end. Okay, with all this said and done, this episode is bad, but not for the reasons you all think. I'll get into why first, but first let me praise what this episode does right, because not enough people have praised this show. It definitely has the energy behind it. All things said and done, the energy is definitely something to praise, both in this episode and the show as a whole for. It's not too much, but it's enough to keep the audience into it as it continues to keep you on your toes. The humor behind the show is well done. Sure, it'll date itself instantly, having itself unimportant and out of date within a year or two, but I can make a similar argument about We Bare Bears, which surprisingly has a similar style humor to the Powerpuff Girls now that I think about it. Both are kind of more in your face than most other shows, but yet both tend to be a lot more down to earth at the same time. My guess it comes with the territory of using more modern stuff for humor. I also have to give this reboot a lot of credibility as a reboot. They managed to keep the characters, for the most part, still in character. They may be slightly more exaggerated with a more modern feel to them, but I can still feel those characters are the same ones from the old show, just with different voices. I'm not gonna lie, it is slightly jarring to hear a voice that isn't Tara Strong come out of Bubbles, but I say as long as Kristen Lee can keep the innocent nature of Bubbles in her tone as she goes through the show, it'll all be good. Now let's get to the not-so-greatness of the show, and more importantly, this episode. So in the case of the show as a whole, every episode is very preachy about its morals. Every episode seems to have one, and they're all very in your face about it. In the case of Horn Sweet Horn, the moral is don't rush into decisions, and boy do they try to hammer that home. Using a horse that believed it was a unicorn being a metaphor for transgenderism is one thing, but using a unicorn who thought it was a horse who believed he at heart was a unicorn is something entirely different. Especially if you're going to make your moral don't rush into things, which is a pretty big issue when you think about it. You kind of failed at your own moral trying to push an agenda and explore something like gender dysphoria. It kind of feels like you were doing it for the sake of doing it. I also want to touch on the speed of this episode. One thing that's been really bothering me about cartoons nowadays is that they're getting shorter. Most cartoons running for about 11 minutes. This wouldn't be so bad if they were literally going for a joke-centered show. Say what you want about Teen Titans Go, but at least it knows what it's going for. Other shows that do this 11-minute runtime try to tell actual stories that would be great if they were told in a 22-minute time frame, but feel hollow in an 11-minute one as you try to cram everything into a smaller time frame, and basically hit the fast-forward button on life. This episode is a good example of that. Being that Donnie's struggle is never really seen, but more often told through a single line, we're expected to feel sorry for him. That's basic storytelling 101 right there. Show, don't tell. Thank you guys so much for watching this review. If you guys liked it, give it a thumbs up. If you guys want to see more, hit that subscribe button. And don't forget, there's a link below to a Facebook page that you guys can follow. Take care.